Hey kids, Mr. Fly here, hope you're well, and welcome back to the channel and another bike review. And this bike review is one that's been much requested because it's for a bike that, well, I've been wanting to ride for a while, but it could cause a bit of controversy because the bike I'm riding is the CFMoto 800 MT. Why is it controversial? Well, it's a Chinese bike, and they always get a bad press, don't they? Alright, stick around and stay tuned. Let's see if this one might break that mould. Okay folks, CFMoto then. They are indeed a Chinese manufacturer, and that comes with a lot of stigma, doesn't it? Because let's face it, 10-15 years ago, if ever you rode a Chinese motorcycle, and I'm talking mostly they were small capacity vehicles, 125s and so on, they had a really terrible reputation and they were pretty ratty. Some were better than others, there were one or two half decent ones, but mostly they were kind of poor materials, made of cheese, and had terrible reliability problems. You know, I've always said ignore the Chinese at your peril. They've been steadily getting better and better, and if any brand is likely to make inroads into the Western market, then I think it's probably CFMoto, because they are now coming out with some bikes that look really good. They're priced keenly, have got amazing facilities and components, and well, I just think they could be the one. I've never ridden a CFMoto before. This is the CFMoto 800 MT. Without further ado, let me show you the bike. Okay, so here she is folks, the CFMoto 800 MT. Now tell me that's not a good looking adventure bike. I think it looks really good. I mean, if we start down at the front here, of course, gold wheels always do it for me. These have these spoked rims, but they are in fact tubeless, which is a good thing, I think. Coming out and up, we see we've got this, I think, which a pretty front end actually. And as standard, the bike comes with these spotlights here, as well as crash bars. It's got lower crash bars as well, and a skid plate on there, all as standard. Really a nice looking thing. I think in this blue it looks good too. Let's just come a little bit closer so you can see. There we go. The only finish I'm not so sure on is the handlebars and the riser there. I mean, it looks all right. It looks almost a bit too good to be true, a bit too shiny for my liking, but it's a minor point. I mean, if you look at everything else, things like the fuel cap, the paintwork, everything else about it looks to be well made. There's nothing about this that says to me cheap bike. I mean, it's definitely got some GS-ness about it, hasn't it? That back seat and the way everything at the back end looks is very GS-like, isn't it? The front end, I don't know what that reminds me of. It's got a kind of a mini beak there. Maybe that's a bit more Tiger 1200-y. I don't know. But yeah, overall, I think it's a handsome looking bike. And I'd have no trouble having one of those in my garage and looking back at it as I walked out. I think it's beautiful.
Oh, cool looking bike, man. Wow, so expensive though. If only there was a way I could find out more about the machine so I knew I wasn't buying a dud.
Are you thinking about buying a second-hand motorbike? Are you worried about splashing out your hard-earned cash on a donkey?
I am.
Would you like a service that could tell you whether that dream bike has been clocked, crashed, stolen, or otherwise?
I'd absolutely love it.
Well then, you need Car Vertical.
So, you may have heard of Car Vertical from other YouTube channels or elsewhere, but did you know it doesn't just protect you when you buy a new car, but motorcycles too? Let me show you how. Okay, let me show you how this works using my iPhone, because that way I can show you exactly what I'm looking at on the screen as I look at it. So all right, I'll open up a report. So I'm interested in buying this Honda here. I'll open up the report. It says loading report. Here we go. Up it comes. The report is immediately loaded, and you can immediately see here, look, there's the odometer needs some attention. You can see it says financial legal status is green, damage is green, odometer needs attention. If we have a look at that section, it takes you straight down to this graph here, and you see, look, there in the middle of it, it's gone down. There's been a rollback at some point, so that kind of makes you think that it might have some fake mileage, so maybe it's one to steer clear of. So that's one thing just to bear in mind. Other things that we can see on here, you can see that the financial legal status is clear. There's no damage records or anything like that. Hasn't been any natural disasters or what have you. Some more details about the bike and so on. It's got when it was registered, when it's been inspected. If you hit show more, look, we can see all the MOTs in there, all that kind of thing, when the ownership changed. So loads of information in there, but in this case, it looks like it's had that rollback, so probably one best avoided, I'd say. Look elsewhere. So in short, Car Vertical is a super useful way of giving yourself some sort of peace of mind before you pull the trigger on buying that second-hand motorcycle purchase. Now the good news is I can get you 20% off of Car Vertical if you use the code FLYER when you request your reports. I'll stick a link below in the description of the video. Click on that one and you'll get an extra discount, or indeed I'll put a link below in the comments below as well, so you can click on that one too if you want to. So all that remains to be said is thank you very much indeed to Car Vertical for sponsoring this video. That's the end of the advert. Let's get back to the video.
Okay, welcome back folks to the CFMoto 800 MT, then my first ride review on this actually rather beautiful summer day. So what are my first impressions of the bike as I jump on? Well, I have to say, positive. There's a few things you need to know about this machine. Number one, it's got some good componentry in it. First of all, the engine is basically the engine out of the KTM 790 Adventure. CFMoto actually manufacture those engines, I believe, for KTM. So, you know, the engine is made on the same production line, it's just stamped CFMoto, not KTM. Of course, you could argue KTM maybe don't have the best reputation in the world for reliability, but, you know, they're a mainstream manufacturer, aren't they? So, I have no qualms with regards to that engine. I think it's solid, and I have to say the engine sounds and goes really well. We'll talk more about that in a minute. The mirrors on the bike, really nice actually. I quite like this design. It's a bit old school, but I like it. They're nice and big, and the most important thing for me is they don't vibrate at all. There's a good clear view out the back, and I'm not looking at my shoulders or elbows hardly at all, so the mirrors work an absolute treat. Right, well, there's nothing behind us. Let's just test those brakes on here, see what we're like for fork dive. Not much fork dive at all for a big old bike actually. Surprised there. Let's have another little go. Did feel the ABS just cut in there. Nothing behind me. Yeah, not the sharpest brakes ever, but they're not bad. And I noticed then as I braked hard, did you see the hazard lights flashed on? Another little feature. What another value for money feature on this bike. You've got the alert on the back if you're braking hard. Let's just try the back brake. Yeah, back brake's okay. Again, I could feel the ABS cutting in quite quickly there. Yeah, no, those brakes are better than I thought they would be, I have to say. Grip out of these tyres is brilliant. Okay, it's a nice dry day today and relatively warm compared to what I'm used to riding in of late. But they do give you some confidence to push on. Even around the lanes, it's a big old, you know, fairly heavy bike, but it's a lot of fun. So it's great that the bike has a quick shifter, and it does work okay. But if you want to use the clutch and gearbox, how is that? Well, again, it's all right. I think I've had one false neutral since I've been riding it, but that's probably just because I wasn't used to the bike. In the main, the gearbox seems all right. Not brilliant, but it's okay. A little bit clunky, and the clutch, I would say, is quite stiff on it. But you know, the good news is you don't have to use it very often because you've got that quick shifter. So as far as gearbox and clutch is concerned, it's all right, not brilliant. Next up, things like the suspension. Again, great componentry on there. Not cheap rubbish that they've sourced somewhere in China, but good stuff. The electronics, I believe, are provided by Bosch. Again, good stuff. So they've not really skimped on some of the internals on the bike. So that's the first thing. The other thing to bear in mind is they offer a 4-year guarantee with the bike. Now that shows some faith in their own product, doesn't it? There aren't that many manufacturers that give you 4-year guarantees. And then the other thing, well, as you saw, it's a fine looking machine. It doesn't look horrible in any way. It's great in terms of the looks. The Goldwing wheels always win me over, of course. Right, is there an opportunity to overtake here? Need to get past my first white van of the day. Yeah, here we go. The other thing you have to know is, as I talk about this bike to you, it comes in at under 10 grand. In fact, it comes in at just over £9,000 at 9,199. And at the moment, time of recording, you can also get free panniers thrown in. I mean, what an absolute bargain for a bike that has everything that this has. But we'll get onto that a bit later. Let's just think about the way the thing handles and rides and so on. So let's go up this little bumpy road that I usually use on my tests just to see how she handles things. Hello, sir. I'm purposely going up the middle bumpy bit of this road, and the suspension is just swallowing them up. It's lovely. Feels absolutely great. I mean, as far as comfort is concerned, this bike is right up there. The handlebars, I would say, I'm guessing, but they feel a little bit narrower than, say, on my GS. But they're in a very comfortable position. The seat seems lovely and comfy as well. Again, feels very much like my GS. I mean, there's definitely some copycat work going on here. Chinese are famous for that, aren't they? And if you look at the switchgear on here, they're direct rip-offs of the GS. Both the way they look, the design, and even the way, you know, the faces and everything else is exactly like a BMW. Not necessarily a bad thing, although I'm a bit anti-copying, of course. But comfort-wise, yeah, the bike is really, really nice. Let's head down here, my little handling road. Got a quick shifter, which works, well, fine. It's not the most slick quick shifter in the world, but it does a job both up and down. This motor, well, you probably can't hear it through the microphone on this camera, but it sounds epic. It's proper fun. It's got a raw note to it. It sounds great and goes really well. So this bike, although I tend to, in my mind, I'm kind of comparing it with the GS because it feels kind of GS-y. It's being mid-size bike, 800cc-ish, we'll go through the specs in a minute, really puts it more in the category of, say, the Triumph Tiger 900, which I know well. Well, compared to that bike, number one, I prefer the sound of the engine, but compared to that bike, this feels a much more substantial machine. It's a big old bike, this. It feels like a big old GS, even though it's in the 800cc category. It's a substantial bit of kit. In fact, it feels more substantial than the current GS, which I know well, which has quite a narrow front end now, and it feels like you're sat on top of it. This, you feel very much sat in, and there's a lot of bike in front of you. It's very wide between the legs. I actually like it. As I say, from a riding point of view, it does remind me of my big GS, although I should be comparing it against the Triumph Tiger 900. Stuff we're looking at here, we already talked a bit about the switchgear, BMW rip-off. It's got cruise control there, which also is BMW rip-off, the way that's done, but great that it's got that. It's got this big TFT, which looks quite nice. It's nice and clear. I would say maybe, if I'm going to be picky, the refresh rate is a bit lower than on some others, so some of the movements, animations are a little bit jerkier than on premium brands, but that's a minor point. What I would say though is some of the features and functions, it's not intuitive, it's not that easy to use. So this bike again comes as standard with heated grips and heated seats, absolutely amazing value. But to get at those, you've got to dig through the menus, and it's not particularly intuitive how you do that. I have played around with it, but every time I go in there, it seems to work differently. Bear in mind, I don't have a manual for this bike because it's a loan bike from the manufacturer. You don't get manuals with them always, so I'm kind of guessing at it. So I might be doing it a disservice there, but I don't find its ease of use through the menu system is very good. But then that's not the only bike that suffers from that, is it? Many more expensive bikes can suffer from that issue. Handling around here is brilliant. It does feel like a fun bike, I have to say. Oh, I'm well impressed with this. Alright, it's time for a bit of lugging about. Let's head off to the station car park. Check out what the bike is like to move around off the side stand, that sort of thing, to simulate what it's like moving it around your garage or on your driveway. See what the weight feels like, and also check out what the turning circle's like. So let me find my favourite parking spot, which is just here, the one with the donuts in. Right, okay, here we go. Find neutral, which for some reason it doesn't want to do. Come on. Now you want to find neutral. Second, let's go down. Oh, missed it. Okay, so it turns out finding neutral is quite tricky after all. Come forward a bit. First, geez, what is going on? I take back all the good things I said about the gearbox. Second, just a gentle tap. There we go, neutral at last. In terms of getting my feet down, look, I'm on the balls of my feet at 5'8" with a 32-inch leg. Right, let's turn her off. Here we go, that's what she looks like. Now she has got these somewhat GS-like grab handles here, which are quite handy for moving it around. Let's see what it's like to get it off the side stand. Actually, pretty easy. Nothing around, let's turn around, see what the turning circle's like. And pretty good actually. Well, I say that, let's have a look. Round we come, up here. Doesn't feel particularly heavy actually. I thought it was going to feel a lot heavier than it does. So I started off in the middle of that one, and I've ended up in the middle of that one. So I would say, and I've done this test lots of times, that's sort of an average turning circle. It's neither brilliant nor terribly wide. It's okay. I think moving this around in your garage, you'll be absolutely fine. It doesn't feel particularly heavy to get it off the side stand. Surprisingly lighter than it looks. So somebody mentioned to me when I said that I was going to be riding a CFMoto that KTM owned a stake in them. Well, that's not actually true. There is this joint venture arrangement that KTM have had with CFMoto for some time now. I think about 12-14 years. CFMoto have been making some of the engines for KTM smaller capacity bikes up to the 790, and then also KTM now have signed up as being the distributor for CFMoto in the UK and some other major European countries. And that's kind of a reciprocal arrangement, because I believe in China KTMs are distributed by CFMoto. So that's what that's all about. There's no ownership interest, but there is a joint venture going on. So again, I suppose in a way that kind of adds a bit more credibility to CFMoto as a brand, doesn't it? I think it does. Of course, the proof will be in the longevity, won't it? I can't see anything about the bike that looks particularly low quality. It may be that the handlebars and the yoke here are maybe a bit too shiny for my liking, but I don't think they necessarily look low quality. It rides beautifully, I have to say. It does not feel a cheap ride at all, and nothing that I can see looks particularly cheap either. Compared to other Chinese bikes I've ridden in the past, this is just leagues ahead. I'll be interested to ride some other CFMotos and see how they are. Other things of note, this screen is adjustable. This is on the highest setting at the moment. You can't readjust it as you move, because they're done via these wheels on the side, which are effectively bolts, so you need to do it when you stop, undo those. It slides up and down on these rails, and you can sit it where you like, but seems to do an okay job. I've not been on a faster road yet, really, to feel what the turbulence is like. Okay, I wouldn't have a quick blat on an A road just to see what the wind protection is like. Here I am at just over 60 miles an hour with the windscreen that's fully up positioned, and I've got no wind hitting the top of my helmet at all. I'm completely protected by that. That works really, really well. A little bit of wind on my shoulders, but otherwise absolutely fine. Some of the better wind protection I've come across. Stuck behind a tractor up here, how annoying. Right, while I'm stuck behind the tractor, let me whiz you through the specs. Okay folks, let's have a look at the numbers on the CFMoto 800 MT. I'm just taking in that view again. I think it's just a lovely looking bike in the sunshine. Anyway, yeah, starting off with the engine, which is that KTM derived unit, as I say, 799cc twin cylinder unit, putting out 95 brake horsepower and 77 newton meters of torque. Sounds great and goes great. Brakes on the front are from, as Johnny English would say, Huan, and they are actually, I believe, a sort of cheaper subsidiary of Brembo. As you can see, it's got twin discs on there with 4-pot calipers. They're 320mm discs on the front. On the rear, 260mm discs with a 2-pot caliper, again from Huan. Loving those gold wheels. Suspension on the front, as you can see, fully adjustable. These forks are from KYB, upside down forks, 160mm travel on the front. And there's the shock on the rear, which gives 150mm of travel. Seat height on the bike is 825mm, but it is quite narrow at the front. I'm only short at 5'8", and I can get my feet down. I am sort of on the balls of my feet. I could do it with it a little bit lower, but the weight of the bike doesn't feel ponderous at all. Talking of the weight, this one comes in at 231 kilograms curb weight, which isn't too bad for a bike of this type. Do like the design of this tank on here, and this holds 19 litres of fuel. Electronics wise, you've got this 7-inch TFT, which comes with Bluetooth connectivity. You also get Sport and Rain riding modes as standard. You get LED lights all around, and you even get these extra little spotlights as well, all part of the deal. Let's just talk about the value of this bike, because it costs £9,199, and for that you get a quick shifter as standard, 4-year warranty, cruise control as standard, heated grips, heated seats as standard, those LED fog lamps as standard, the crash bars as standard, tyre pressure monitoring as standard, and currently, at time of filming, free panniers too. Absolutely incredible value. Okay, welcome back. Sadly, I'm still caught in this queue behind the tractor. But I'm just trying to think then, what other bikes can you think of that are sub 10 grand that come with a quick shifter, have heated seats and heated grips, big TFT, cruise control, look good? I mean, it's just, you can't argue with the value. As I said before, it's just down to how is this going to last in the long term. I suppose there's two issues, aren't there, really, for us? And let me know if you can think of anything else. Is it going to last long term? I see no evidence based on this first ride to suggest that it won't do, but who knows? I've not ridden it through winters for 10 years running. And then, can we as Brits get over the stigma of buying Chinese stuff? And then, of course, I'm sure I have loads of comments on this, because whenever I mention Chinese bikes, I get these comments. People don't like buying Chinese goods. They see it as supporting communist regimes with dodgy human rights records, and I'm not going to get into all that. I mean, all I would say is pretty much everything you buy, if it's got electronics in it or anything else, has componentry made in China, so you can't really avoid buying Chinese stuff. So question mark on, you know, what's it going to be like long term? We don't know. No evidence to suggest it's not going to be okay, but we'll see over time. Can you live with the stigma of it being Chinese and all your mates taking the mickey out of you? Which is a real thing, isn't it? Or do you just rise above that and say, you know what, the Chinese are perfectly capable of making a good quality motorcycle. They've been doing it for ages in joint ventures with the likes of KTM and BMW. Why can't they make their own? And I would suggest that CFMoto are definitely doing that, because on this first ride I'm super impressed with the way this bike goes. It's a lot more fun than I expected it to be. This engine, it's got loads of grunt. You don't need any more power than this, I tell you. Whilst the Ducati Multistradas and the BMW GSs are chasing ever more power, actually in the real world this is exactly in the sweet spot. The bike handles nicely, it doesn't feel ponderous. Yeah, I'm quite shocked in a good way actually about how this bike feels and goes. Now I know I'm going to get loads of negative comments as a result of this review, because as I say, you always do when you talk Chinese bikes. But I challenge you to have a go on one of these and tell me that you think it's rubbish. Don't tell me you think it's rubbish and you've not had a go on one, because that doesn't count. You've got to have ridden one and then tell me what you think of it. Or indeed, if you've owned one of these, because they have been around for a while, what do you think of it? How's it been long term? Has it been reliable? How are the finishes standing up? Where do you keep it? Is it in the garage or is it outside? I'd love to know in the comments below your experiences of living with a CFMoto, not just this, the 800 MT, but any of them, just so we can maybe get a bit of a gauge for how they're going to last long term. But yeah, I think other manufacturers are going to have to take a bit of notice, because pricing on this at the value, very difficult to argue with. Okay, so in terms of, you know, as a sum up, what are the things I love about the bike? Well, the engine, the looks, the sheer functionality and the features it's got for the price, the value, those are all unquestionably good. What don't I like about it? Well, the quick shifter maybe is a little bit agricultural, but it's certainly no worse than a BMW GS quick shifter. And just a quick add, because I did that summary for this video before I'd struggled with getting the bike into neutral when I did that walk around test at the car park, which let you into a little secret. It was filmed after the main video. So yeah, the gearbox, bit of a question mark about finding neutral, which does raise a little bit of a red flag, but that's just one fly in the ointment. The TFT maybe refreshes a little bit slower as that needle moves around, it's a bit jerky, not a big deal. My biggest dislike is probably the fact that it's a bit of a faff to get to some of the features and functions. I've not even bothered to try and show you on this first ride review, because I'll be looking away from the road and looking at the controls here, so that's a bit rubbish. The user interface needs some improvement. But other than that, I mean, that pricing and value way outweighs all that stuff. I just think it's a fabulous entry into adventure bikes. And on top of that, as a bonus, it's got gold wheels and I really love the way it looks. Alright, I'll stop going on and on about it, let you draw your own conclusions, have a ride on one, let me know what you think in the comments below. Alright, that's it for this time. If you've not done so already, do consider hitting the subscribe button. It'd be great to have you along on the next video. I don't just do bike reviews here on the Missenden Flyer, but I do bits and pieces about looking after your bike in the garage. I do bike tours at home and abroad, monthly bike news, the odd live stream, you name it, I'll try and cover it here on the Missenden Flyer. It'd be great to have you along. Alright, that's it for now. Look forward to speaking to you again soon. Until then, this has been the Missenden Flyer. Cheerio.
Hey kids, we're the Missenden Flyers.
I'm loving this engine on here and the handling of the bike. Makes me think I need to get me some more KTMs in. Haven't ridden any for a while. Don't know why that is. But if they're like this, they'll be a lot of fun. Stop recording.